Thank you.
Hello and welcome to the Hidden Door live show. Hidden Door is an independent arts organisation based in Edinburgh, Scotland, that aims to work with the best emerging artists and new creative talent across a whole range of art forms to help them make new work and get it out there. We normally do this through our festival, which we put on once a year in some sort of random derelict building in the city. But this year we've had to postpone our festival, of course, for obvious reasons. So we thought we'd do this instead. Live stream shows online and use the opportunity to find out about lots of the exciting work still being made by Scotland's best up-and-coming artists. A lot of the spaces and places artists and audiences normally come together in are shut down now. So we wanted to try and open up some sort of space online to try and let a little bit of that happen in this way. So thanks for coming along. You're the audience. You're really important here. We want you to feel a part of it. So we'd love it if you could interact and make comments, tell us what you like. And if you want to even ask our guests a question, why don't you try putting a question into the comments and we'll see if we can pick it up and work them up into the interviews. So talking of interviews, let's chat to this gentleman here who's been patiently waiting while I do my intro ramble. We've just heard an awesome track by Edinburgh composer and producer Harry Bongo. Here's some Harry Bongo facts. The music he produces ranges from gentle electronica to cinematic soundscapes, incorporating sampling of found sounds and electroacoustic textures. In his solo work and contributions to different musical projects, Harry explores emotion through primarily instrumental music, and bringing out a sense of humanity from electronic technology. Hello, Harry.
Hello.
How are you doing?
I'm doing grand. Thank you for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure. Let's talk about that track you just played. The tune is called Leith Waterworld. Do you want to tell us a little bit about it and why you called it that?
Well, it started off life just with this water bottle here, and like a lot of music I make, it starts off like kind of some kind of weird sounds, and then I picked up on that kind of weird like pitch bendy thing that happens when you hit the water within the metal, and then I sort of set out to make a watery track alongside that, and then it kind of blossomed into something which was capturing a sense of nostalgia. For me, part of that was going to Leith Waterworld, the indoor pool centre thing. It was great anyway. So it just kind of became this sort of capturing this, idealistic sort of childhood dream and fantasy. And then that sort of kind of fades away by the end as it kind of comes back to the present day. It's all changed now. So this is it's bittersweet as well.
Yeah, it's a better title than Tesco Superstore, which is what it could be called.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a really nice idea, that the way you started the track, just with that kind of watery kind of sound. Your work seems to thrive on quite a lot of curious noises. Do you always kind of go around like tapping stuff and hitting stuff to kind of see what happens?
Yeah, definitely. Like sound design is a really big part of my work. I'm not only just like capturing the found sounds themselves, but then manipulating them, and not in a bad way, but like kind of like change them to something new, and then they can become anything you want really from that kind of start off point. And then it kind of makes the sound your own in a way. And yes, things like contact mics are really good. Like you can a tiny little mic you can strap onto like anything. You can get like marbles to make music and all that. It's like really innovative what you can do nowadays.
Wow. So obviously here we are in the middle of a lockdown, and you're there and I'm here. And how have you been finding it? Have you been getting on okay?
It's been okay. I've really been keeping myself busy. I've only just finished my degree, and then I've done similar music projects. It's really all just been music really, which is great for me, obviously. Yeah, I do. I mean, the only thing I'd say is like, you do miss stuff. Like, I think I'm missing gigs the most at the moment, but like, it's kind of easy for me to say that, it's like, I don't feel like I'm struggling at all here. Like, unfortunately, a lot of people are. So kind of, I'm in an all right position to say like, the worst thing that could happen to me is I don't get to go to gigs,
Well, gigs are important, I think. And
absolutely.
I was going to ask you a little bit about...
it could be a lot worse, definitely.
Sure, of course.
Yeah, missing gigs a lot, definitely.
Yeah. Are you listening to any good music at the moment? Have you found anything new during the lockdown?
Yeah, I mean, there's been good new music released. I'm a huge fan of the new Fortet album, 16 Oceans, I think it's called. Huge Fortet fan, obviously. I think that comes through in my music, the sort of playful, layered music and percussion stuff going on.
We've been trying to get Fortet to play at Hidden Door for like the last 3 years, to no success yet.
That would be amazing. Aside from that, I don't know. I've been kind of listening to a lot of the same music, which is off the top of my head. It's been albums like Vespertine by Björk and Smiley Smile by the Beach Boys. Two very contrasting albums, I know, but they both kind of got a really intimate quality to them, which I kind of like. I like the homemade sort of comforting quality of the music. So I know it's really nice at the moment, I think.
What about reading or films? Have you got any kind of non-musical inspiration that you're feeding in?
Yeah, loads. I I haven't really been. I'd like to kind of take the time to discover a bit more kind of influences during this period, even though we're kind of sort of coming out of it now. But yeah, no, I really like the sort of escapist stuff. I like fantasy stuff, like something that kind of takes you somewhere else. And anything that kind of talks about, like, you know, different worlds, different dimensions, or kind of spiritual worlds. And people like David Lynch, who I'm really influenced by, look into that a lot, I'd say.
Yeah, that's interesting, because I was going to ask you about that. I feel like when I listen to your music, it seems really transportative. Like, it kind of does seem to kind of take me somewhere. And I wondered if that was, you know, something that you were thinking about yourself. Have you been kind of dreaming of any particular places yourself during the lockdown that you'd like to escape to?
Sort of. I mean, I've been kind of like, you know, I still get the chance to like go out for walks in the forest and stuff, and we're right by the sea as well, which is really nice. I don't know. I think it's important for me to just kind of still, you know, think a bit outside the city as much as I can. Not even just like traveling that far, because you're not really supposed to, but just like seeing a bit of a change of scenery other than the city, you know. Yeah, no, I do definitely agree about the whole transportative. I don't know if that's the word. But
I don't know either.
Yeah, I get what you mean. Anyway, yeah, no, I do. I think of my music as being like, I don't know. I also kind of imagine like a train journey or something, or I don't know. I don't want to be like, you know, one of those guys that says like, oh, my music takes you on a journey or whatever, you know, and like it's kind of, I hate to say like narrative based or whatever, but it's true in a way. Like I'm really attached to storytelling through music, through films, through books, kind of conveying a rich story and rich imagery, you know, in what I have basically.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Harry Bongo. We're going to hear a few more tracks. We'll hear a few more tracks by Harry Bongo at the end of the show. I quite like saying Harry Bongo, so I might say it a couple more times. But one of the things that really struck me about your work, Harry, you know, is how varied, surprising, and sort of unpredictable the music is. So I recommend everyone you stay tuned, check out Harry's closing set at the end of the show, and you'll hear some really nice kind of varied tunes coming out of that. But meanwhile, let me tell you a little bit about the rest of the show. We've taken on the theme time and the immaterial, and we'll be asking our guests a little bit about the strange ways time may be behaving during lockdown. We'll be bringing on a few different guests. You may already know that Hidden Door is run by a large group of amazing volunteers, but we do always pay our guests, and especially in times like these, we believe it's really important to generate some income for our artists. So you may see that we have set up a donations page on our website. The link should be being posted. Here we are, look, in the comments, and that's the link there. So if you want to help us keep making these shows and make a contribution towards helping pay the artists, then please go ahead, make a wee donation, and everything helps. We're fundraising to make these shows happen, and if you can help us in any way, we would greatly appreciate it. We're jamming the music in this week, so as well as Harry, we've got some beautiful songs from you, from island-dwelling musical wizard Lists. We've got spoken word from Jeda Pearl, but before all of that, we're going to be chatting to our visual artist of the week, Catherine Street. Catherine, you are a visual artist working across video and sound installation, performance, drawing, writing, painting, and collage. You've exhibited work extensively in Scotland and all around the world, including Germany, USA, Czech Republic, Norway, and New Zealand. You've got some pretty major projects under your belt, including a film commission from Lux, Scotland, in celebration of the work of Scottish filmmaker Margaret Tate, and the exhibition Now 3 at the Scottish National Gallery of Modern Art. You've done numerous arts residencies, for example, at Scottish Sculpture Workshop, Hospital Field, and your work writing has been published in a variety of publications, including Burning Sand, Black Box Management, Dark Mold, Queer Information, and Art. And that is a great CV. emerging artists. So take notes. Catherine, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me on.
It's a pleasure. Listen, I think we've got a little bit of interference going on, some sound interference. So, guys, if you can hear that, just bear with us a wee bit while we try and deal with that. Not sure what it is, but hopefully it will calm down. Catherine, how have you been during the lockdown, and how has it affected you in your work?
Well, I've actually not been doing too bad in the lockdown. I'm almost quite enjoying it, to be honest. I'm very lucky in the sense that I have a job which is relatively secure, so a lot more fortunate than a lot of people, and no one sort of close to me has got sick. So really, I've actually been quite liking just getting on with stuff in the house. Like a lot of my work is collaborative, so that aspect I haven't been able to do, and not been able to obviously meet up with people, get people in the same room together. So I've just been enjoying finding things that I can do on my own in the house. I've been doing a lot of painting and a lot of writing as well, and just making some little films when I'm out walking and things like that. So yeah, quite productive, I think.
So you're an artist who works in a lot of different ways: video, sound, performance, drawing, collage. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your work and some of the things that kind of tie it together? Shall we have a look at some of the images of your work?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the first image that we've got up now, this is an installation called Muscle Theory, which was in the Reed Gallery in Glasgow, and the gallery is quite a big gallery. I had 3 walls with projections moving over each wall, and they were of small films, just of fragments of my body. So it was almost like my body was kind of projected all over the inside of the space, kind of moving around and being interrupted, and things sort of flashing and sparking, but all very muted colours, really, not much colour, more sort of black, whites, greys. So it's mainly a video installation, but then within that there were drawings and text works, and then I had another room which was an audio work, and I also made performances that I did during the run of the show. So I did an hour-long performance, like I think 6 times during the period of the show. So I guess that's just an example of how I use very different formats and sort of get things working together and working off each other, whether that's in video or performance or text or drawing. So that's the work that I have been doing sort of up until the last couple of years or so. But now if we get onto the other image, the next image. So these works that I'm showing now are much more recent, really, that I've done in the last few weeks, really, and some of them are just still work in progress. So they're watercolour paintings with collage. And the starting point for these was a wonderful book that I found, a secondhand book about human anatomy, and there was great images inside it of sort of lungs and internal organs and hearts and things like that. So what I wanted to do was use that as a collage, and then paint different sort of appendages and sort of things leaking in and out of these bodily shapes. So really combining painting with collage and looking at different plant forms and forms of coral and fish and things like that, and combining that with the human anatomy. And then from that starting point, I started bringing in other aspects like logos, and then flowers and sort of different names of organizations and things, trying to almost sort of achieve some sort of synthesis between things that are very different and disparate. And then I think just to give a sort of overview of what my work's about, in a way, I would sort of sum it up as saying that it's about mainly the relationship between the body and ideas. So sort of the experience of having this kind of fleshy, bloody body, and then the world of ideas, more sort of the world of the intellect, and it's expressed through language, and kind of bringing those two things close to each other and sort of merging them together in a way.
Yeah, amazing. Thanks. That's really interesting description of, and it makes a lot of sense with those images that you showed. The kind of this show that we're kind of talking about today is a little bit to do with time. And can you say how you deal with time in your work?
Sure. Because a lot of my work is performance or video, obviously they're sort of time-based things, so time is very important. And I've, with this interest in the body, I've done quite a lot of work about time and endurance and sort of putting my body through tests or sort of repetitive kind of actions and that kind of thing. Some of my work has been installation work where I've been in the installation just as a body that's completely motionless, and then surrounding myself with projections or with texts or sculptural forms. And so I'm just lying as still as I possibly can, and that could take place over sort of 3 or 4 hours. So that's sort of almost a little bit of a test of my body or my kind of endurance to be there and being looked at. So that's one way that I've looked at time. And then I've done, for instance, some drawings which I would call almost like performance drawings, in that they're just me making tiny little marks on the paper just for hours at a time. So I did a series that were 12 hours at a time. So I'd just be sitting kind of making this tiny little mark on the paper for 12 hours. And then that drawing becomes a sort of record of that 12 hours of my life, if you like. So a lot of the work kind of looking at time and the body and endurance, that kind of thing.
Wow. And do you find, or have you found, that during the lockdown that your experience of time has kind of changed at all?
Yeah, I do to some extent. Yeah, I mean, because I haven't been working very much at my day job, I've had a lot more time, and I also work shifts, so I kind of can be working at any time of the week or day or anything, which has meant that I actually kind of have lost track of time a bit, and I never know what day it is or anything. So in a way, I've been quite.
I know that feeling.
In a way, I've been quite enjoying almost getting a bit lost in time to a certain extent. Yeah.
And that's not too disorientating. I find it quite terrifying when I feel like I'm getting lost in time. You feel okay?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I quite enjoy it. Yeah.
That's amazing. Hey, listen, I think you brought a video for us to watch as well. So should we watch that, and then maybe you can tell us a little bit about it after?
Yep. Cool. Yep.
Okay, so go on then. Tell us a little bit about what that was about.
Okay, so, well, I can share how I made it. I'd done a lot of collages using these books about plants. So I'd made a lot of really brightly coloured collages of little sort of scraps of paper all built up in a quite an abstract way. And I wanted to make a video that for the image component of it was very, very abstract and not really having any recognizable objects or people or anything in the frame. So I took the camera and just held it very close to these collages, and then moved the camera about very, very quickly and sort of out of focus. So you get this really strange kind of very blurry out of focus thing, which you're not quite sure exactly what it is. But I wanted to get a lot of color into it as well, and wanted it to be really brightly colored. And I used various techniques in the video to make it seem like it was sort of pulsing or flashing, like kind of almost having like a flickering light over it or something. And then I'd also done a bit of drawing on the top, just drawing these little dots which kind of flicker as the video goes on. So wanting to find this kind of quite abstract, colourful image. And then the sound aspect of it, it was really the sound that led the structure of the work. So I'd made sort of my own kind of sounds, not really singing, but just making these vocal sounds, and then edited that together. So you've got almost like the sound becomes a sort of trace of the body, even though you're not seeing the body in the image, that you've just got this abstract kind of world alongside the sounds made by the voice. Yeah.
Great. And I believe you've also been working on some writings recently. Yeah. You going to read them for us? You want to tell us a little bit about it first?
Yes, I can do, yeah. So I'm going to read two pieces of writing. And the first one, I do quite a lot of writing from images. Often I go to, obviously, before the whole lockdown, going to galleries and writing inside the gallery, just using the artwork as a sort of stimulus to writing. And then I also do quite a lot of writing from just random images that I find online. And so the first piece of writing, I'd taken another previous piece of writing and then put in each line of that into Google image search, and then chosen an image from whatever came up to write about. So this first piece of writing is writing from a specific image, but not really writing about it, just more using it as a stimulus to sort of spark off ideas. And then the second that I'll read was made, I've been using a sort of collaging technique when I've been at events, like, so I go to sort of lectures or symposiums or things, and then just try and jot down any phrases that I hear that I like, or kind of that I can manage to scribble down before the speaker moves on to the next thing. So it gives a very broken up kind of effect, almost like a collage of words. So that's another way that I generate. So I have these different strategies for generating the writing, but I can go ahead and read these two now. Yeah.
Go for it.
Okay. So this first one is called Pig Vector. She says that it's juicy couture, ping Jarry and Ubu under her breasts. Like a toppled dictator, she smiles from behind her commercial free zone. In cities, I was a little bit in love with her. The shining violets among her eyebrows. They all wear sequins, rose-coloured darlings. He makes videos for Instagram dating apps. It's a secret passageway. Furry costumes all riding high and ready to be exhaled and rearranged. All told and satisfied in online pacifiers. The girls are where it's at. I wrote about her exaggeration, her bright red mouth, her living in slums and still shining, bursting, and they have tarpaulin over shrieks of aluminium. This is what makes her so glittering, of her pink-red mirror and her rosy meandering, her traces of lip balm and pataphysical victories. In slighted city she reigns with shining eyes, and well manicured, a darling of the, as he says, first world, and all come to see her. And the second one is called Technologies of Love. When you're out of the question, extensions of the mind leak out into the world. She says, yes, I do, of external things to solve problems. Very thought-like. Involves the emotions. I, being conjoined, I happen to hate. Very different in never neutral. Certain actions desire to go, and when imposed, in action and extension. So if you think, we use our bodies to think. Control works. Forming a plan to change your body. And this is often gets compounded with external states. Body itself is body. Collaboration between mind and world. I think the obvious intuitive. All emotions are in that sense reciprocal, a kind of aggression. Thank you.
Wow, thank you very much. I never ever thought Google Images could ever be the source of anything remotely useful. But that's really, really great. Okay, we're going to wrap it up there. Catherine, what have you got planned for the future? What are you working on next?
Well, I just recently got some funding to make a new film, so I'll be working on that as well as the paintings that I've been more writing. So yeah, working on that really.
Well, thank you very much for coming on the show. It's been really nice to have you. I'm really looking forward to seeing what you get up to in at Hidden Door. We're going to see Catherine Street at Hidden Door 2021, so look out for whatever she gets up to there. Who knows?
Thank you.
And what we're going to do now, we're going to move on to playing some music by Lists. Lists is a singer-songwriter from the Isle of Arran, currently living on Arran. He's released 2 short bodies of work so far, EP1 in 2018 and EP2 in 2019. And recently, he's been fortunate enough to receive the Help Musicians UK Do It Differently COVID Fund. The grant will go towards the release of his first full-length album, which will be out early 2021. There'll be a couple of acoustic versions of songs from EP2 over the coming months in the lead up to the album. List's music is really evocative of the remoter parts of Scotland, and he thought it might be good to film some of his daily surroundings and record us a couple of songs and kind of show the footage as a way of kind of getting across the music. List says, I'm feeling very lucky, grateful to be living somewhere like Arran during all of this. It's been very quiet and the weather's been pretty good. So I've just been trying to write, record, walk, and garden. Let's hear Haven Lee by Lists and catch a glimpse of how Aaron's getting on. So thank you, Lists, for that absolutely beautiful song, and just lovely to see some of the landscape that's kind of fed into your sound. We're going to hear a little bit more from Lists, actually. We're going to have another batch of that in a minute. But before we do that, I'd like to tell you a little bit about, we've got an audience survey, actually, which should be popping up in the comments anytime soon. We'd love to get a little bit of feedback from you. So if you spot the survey in the comments, if you can maybe do whatever the survey asks you to do. I have no idea what it's going to be, but it'll ask you for your opinion on something. And I think you're supposed to say that everything's amazing. But you can say actually whatever you like. So yeah, look out for the V survey, fill it in, and that'd be really great. What I want to do now, though, is bring on or introduce our next guest. We're really proud and excited to have Jeda Pearl on the show this evening. So Jeda Pearl is a poet, writer, spoken word performer, editor, and copywriter with an eye for community platforms. Jeda's work draws on her Jamaican and Geordie Scottish heritage. She says her work often deals with intersections of identity, belonging, secrecy, and survival. And she loves playing with the languages of her ancestral islands. On top of all of this, she's also program manager for the Scottish BAME Writers Network. So hello, Jeda.
Hi, thanks so much for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure. Audience, remember as well, if you want to maybe pop in some questions for Jeda, we'll see if we can work them in. Not promising, but you know, if you want to pop anything on there, if anything occurs to you, then write it on. Jeda, how's your experience of time in lockdown been? Have you been finding you've got more or less time?
Well, I mean, not that much has really changed for me, to be honest. I'm quite lucky that my work's continued. So the other thing is that I've got fibromyalgia, which is a chronic pain condition. So I already live a bit of a lockdown life as it is. I'm not really out and about as much as most other people might be. So from that point of view, it's been quite interesting witnessing people kind of experiencing those kind of limitations, maybe for the first time. So yeah.
It's quite interesting to think about it from that kind of perspective. Your work is really varied, draws on traditions like sci-fi, folklore. Can you talk a little bit more about this, and maybe even mention maybe a bit about the role of time in your work?
Sure. So I think thinking deeper about it, it really does stem quite often from themes of belonging that tend to come through in my work. And that is quite largely in part because I'm a Scottish person of colour, and I'm mixed race as well. So I've always been inhabiting an in-between world my whole life. And I think, whether that's kind of being constantly refused belonging by other Scottish people, or having a culture mashup, or being othered, but also like having an invisible disability as well. So there's a number of aspects of my life that I'm in this in-between world, and I think that has fed through quite a lot into my writing. And I do draw on some of the folklore traditions in Scotland and in Jamaica. They're very alive today, and that's kind of one of the things that I love about having both those sides of my heritage, and as well as the shared history that I do explore in my writing as well.
Interesting. So you mentioned folklore there as well, but also sci-fi has been mentioned as a bit of a passion of yours as well. And how does that come into your work?
So I've always loved sci-fi. I think more films and series. When I was young, everyone would shout around the house, "Star Trek's on," and stuff. So since I've been quite young, it's been something that I've loved, and but more recently it was at Star Trek again. The recent Discovery series that I think was 2017 that came out. I just absolutely loved that, and that kind of happened around the time that I was starting to then bring more lean into sci-fi a bit more, and I did that through poetry. So I've always kind of held poetry kind of up on this pedestal, but going at a sci-fi angle to it, it meant I could really play with the form and not sort of take myself or take it so seriously. So yeah, that makes sense.
And I believe that you got published through the kind of sci-fi angle, didn't you?
Yeah. So Shoreline of Infinity, they're an indie publisher here in Scotland. So they were the first publisher to publish my poems. So that was really exciting. That was in 2018. And I just since then have been feeling like, I can call myself a poet now, which is ridiculous because there's lots of different ways you can perform poetry, spoken word, but that I think just having, when you get little things like that, whether it's a little publishing credit or, you get shortlisted for something, you just get a bit more impetus behind you to keep going and develop your writing practice more.
Yeah, interesting. Well, look, I believe you're going to read something for us now. Do you want to just tell us a little bit about it and then go for it?
Yeah, so I am going to share some poetry in a little bit, but first I thought it would be fun just because it fits quite nicely with the theme of time. And I do really like playing with timelines, and that's what I'm doing in my novel that I'm working on just now. So part of that is characters reaching through time, and part of that is the main character. It's called Desi, and she has to navigate this place that's between realities called the Hollow. So the novel is inspired by Jamaican and Scottish folklore and shared histories. And in this section that I'm about to read, Desi is in a forest on the outskirts of Edinburgh. And she comes across a silk cotton tree which is a bit weird that there's one in Scotland because they're native to the Caribbean. And if you don't know, their silk cotton trees are associated with the spirit world, and some cultures regard them as sacred. So, Halfling Gate. The fox's teeth eased up on Dessie's leg. He looked into her eye, trusting she'd not run. She nodded, as if he'd asked her to stay put, and he licked the small nicks of blood on her shin. They weren't deep, but there wasn't any doubt that they'd leave dark scars on her sienna brown skin. Cuts and scratches always did that. It was the bruises that didn't show. Fox had a long cherry-juiced bruise down the fur on his back. His rusty legs lightened to custard cream along his tummy underneath, and his tail was dipped in grey ink at the end. He tipped up his snout and let out a soft keel, signalling look-see here was over. That's when she saw the nubs of nipples on his underside and wondered if Fox meant to make her his cub. He brushed his tail against her bare legs as he padded in front, leading the way. She suddenly felt hot in her green raincoat, the label of her jumper itchy at her neck. She paused and listened for the echoes of her classmates, but all she could hear was the silver birch trees whispering to each other as their skinny trunk legs closed at their back. Ahead, the roots of another tree snaked up and out of the ground into lanky, curving walls that towered over them both. She looked up into the branches that were so very far away, the arms spidering out, coddling the whole forest. This tree was Queen. Something dark along the tree root walls caught her eye. It was Fox's shadow, though it moved one drop beat after. Fox, then Shadow Fox, turned their heads back to Dessie, jaws open and tasting the air. She followed them towards the pond, rolling the damp mushroom in her pocket. I'm going to leave that there. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you very much. That's amazing. I'd love to read more. There's imagery in your poetry that is very rich and kind of textural, and I wondered if you actually, as a poet, if you actually worked with imagery in your head. I'm a visual artist by my background, and I wondered if you started with an image when you are conjuring up a poem.
Yeah, I think I'm quite a visual person as well. So when I'm writing by hand, my writing is very sparse, quite skeletal. But I do have all the imagery is there in my mind. I was thinking about this. Maybe I'm wondering if it links back to, there's a period of time where I wrote down my dreams, and sorry, I think my doorbell's just gone. I don't know if I could hear that, but it's okay. There's someone else in the house that will deal with that. So I'd write down my dreams in the morning. But if you look at the writing, it just makes very little sense. But when I look at it, I can recall everything. So I think, so that's sort of one aspect of it. And then I will flesh it out when I'm typing things up. And the other reason I think I'm quite visual is I actually went to art school myself. So I've got a degree into textiles back in the day, back in the 90s. So I think, I always bring quite a lot of visuals into my work.
Yeah, great. Well, fancy reading us a couple of poems just now?
Yeah, sure. So I've got 3 poems that I'm going to share. The first 2 I wrote quite recently, and they came out of Hannah Lavery's Writers of Colour group that she's been doing weekly during lockdown, which has just been such a sanctuary. So here's the first one. It's called The Finished Den. To start, we will creak open the arms of a brown wooden clothes horse, drape her in patchworks of cottons and muslins, borrow duck feather down pillows to plump in the corner, tuck slivers of truth between cushion and cover, steal an old book to rewrite history, Bring a gallon of sweet water to sip at curiously. Trail a mess of crumbs and edible flowers to be followed. Serve a sorrow-filled song with a shiver of elation. And in the morning we will clamber out together refreshed. This next one is called Citadel of Truth. A jaw-cracking punch swaddled in silk. No filter dripped through fine gauze. A fortress built from butterfly wings. Sound waves paused, awaiting a keen ear. The full spectrum of colours, including the ones you can't see. Leagues of dream thieves handing out hope. A benevolent guide, side-eyeing your wolf pack. The legacies of empire rise up and right back. So those two poems, they kind of came out of workshops that were looking at truth and how to talk about truth. So that's that was the inspiration for that. And the den was kind of looking at things like, instead of beachcombing, homecombing, and it just within this lockdown experience. So this last poem is called Space Race. What is this race? To colonize every inch of space, to continue to make a case that to discover a new race or species that was there all along, minding their own, is not a disgraceful mindset. When down here on Earth, we're still half a millennium later, trying to repair our ancestors' mistakes. What is this rush to fling ourselves into the cosmic dust when we have no way of warning our alien friends to brace themselves for us? As if it's our God-given right to taste what is out there, to terraform these exoplanets into a shape we can recognize. This hypnotic curiosity call, it loops around our waist like a 1960s plasma ray, and then we land on alien ground with the brown jaw earth under our white boots, and the black voids of our pupils dilate, and we choose to forget what is not ours. How to behave as an uninvited bacteria-riddled guest, some say, we're just here to observe, while making attempts at categorization, when their way of reproduction is so unlike our own, we cannot fathom the parent-child connection, or their way of consumption, absorbing each other, does not compute. Are they cannibalistic, inferior, savage, unintelligent? Who do you have in your mind's eye when I say those words? Yeah, we have not the language to hope to describe their alien customs, behaviours, bodily functions, environmental interactions. Who are we to make those judgments? Oh, we are ripe for misunderstanding, misconstruing, accidentally decimating. But we are ripe for wide-eyed wonder, acceptance, friendship, interspecies dating, loving all our permutations. What is this quest? To find the theory of everything as we choose to see it. How can a true intergalactical species interaction take place when we think we know all there is to know, this relentless need to explain away the unexplainable, with no particles left to their own devices to choose what life is? Don't get me wrong, I too want to learn what the universe holds, to discover the strange and the new. Like you, like most of us do, I want in my lifetime to taste the utopian dream, a harmonic populace. Meet other beings with who we can exchange some kind of small thing and know we are not alone. That simple phrase we forget on the daily, we are not alone. Is it my cynicism or my ancestral fight? In one hand I hold coal, in the other gallons of souls, and I'm telling you we need to tread light with our curiosity, when it's really the drive to find the way back to the essence of life that we think we've misplaced. Thank you.
Wow, Jeda, that's just absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing those with us. It's like, that's what the whole point of doing these live shows is, just so we can, hear stuff like that and kind of get an insight into what goes on in making your poetry. Really, really appreciate you sharing that with us. That was absolutely fantastic. Look, before we say goodbye to you, we've not had any audience questions that I can see, although I can tell you that Auntie Lorraine is watching. And I wondered if you could maybe tell us a little bit. You're involved in the Scottish BAME Writers Network. That's right, isn't it?
Yeah.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about what they're up to at the moment?
Sure. So there's 4 of us that work part-time. I'm one of 3 program managers, and we've been putting on writing workshops and masterclasses for Black writers and writers of colour. We've also been commissioning articles for our blog, and we recently did an online reading event, and we're hoping to do another one in maybe later in the summer. So we've got quite a lot of things going on. We recently published a call to action as well to the literary sector, just with everything that's been going on, and it was partly a response to recent events, but also, our mission, our ethos is very intersectional and anti-racist, and we constantly evaluate ourselves and how we're doing from that point of view as well. So, I think you might pop the website up at some point. Yeah, check us out, and if any writers of colour or Black writers are watching, please do connect with us.
Yeah, and thank you so much for sharing that, and I'm sure a lot of people are going to be interested in what you guys are doing. There's a lot of interest growing in that. So thank you very much, Jeda. We'll look forward to seeing your work around, so take care of yourself. Okay, so I'm just going to mention donations again. If you want to help us do these live shows, here you can see our little beautiful little donations button here. All artists are paid to come on and contribute. We're raising money to make that possible, so you're very welcome to help us and donate if you are able. What I want to do now, though, I want to move on to we're getting towards the end of the show. We're stretching time, as is the theme. We're running a little bit over, but I hope you don't mind us doing that. These guests we've got on are so great, and it's just good to be able to spend a bit more time kind of with them and just let them talk about their work. So that's kind of why we're doing that, I guess. But what we're going to do now is we're going to jump back into the world of Aaron, and we're going to be going back to lists again to lose ourselves for a couple more moments in List's world. So we're going to play the video just now. Most of the video footage that List has been taken is from the north part of the island, and he said that though maybe not consciously or intentionally, I'm sure that my surroundings have informed my music, and it's really nice to be able to share a visual of these surroundings with this audience. So guys, I hope you enjoy this. A couple of songs by Lists, and then we're going to bring the show to a conclusion.
I don't want to task you with keeping me afloat, much as I am still that boy pulling at your coat. I won't leave my worry down, save a thought to spare. Though I'm leading up with me, you've your own to bear. I won't let my troubles weigh heavy on your mind. Anchored down but trying to take one day at a time. I'll steady the boat whilst you gather your thoughts. Finding the strength to steer your heart away from the rocks. But what if I can't see a way through the swell? And I know that I will, it's just harder to tell. Though you cry yourself to sleep, he'll be there, the strength you need. I know it's hard, but once we raise the sail, you'll see it's still his name in the breeze. And I'll be your eyes till you see past the tears. Won't leave your side without finding the words that we both need to hear. But where can I turn when there's no one to call? And we're nearing the shore, but we're taking on water. Don't you fall down to your knees. He'll be there as you find your feet. I know it's hard, but once we raise the sail, you'll see it's still his name in the breeze. It's still his name in the breeze. It's still his name in the breeze.
Well, I hope that you really enjoyed that evocative bit of video from Lists and obviously the amazing music. Just a little tribute there at the end to Lists' cat, Dawn, who actually died last week on Tuesday, was put down after having lived a full life for 20 years. So Lists obviously sensed farewell coming and put her on the end of his video. So it's a bit sad, but I think a tribute well made to a beautiful cat. Well, look, that brings us pretty much to the end of our show. And thank you so much for watching, commenting, and sticking around. I'm going to bring Harry Bongo back in a minute to perform some more of his amazing compositions. But just before we do that, I hope you've enjoyed the show. We've got lots more plans. Please tell people about the show if you've enjoyed it. It's available to watch as a post on the Hidden Door Facebook page whenever you like, so you can share it with people if you've liked it or enjoyed it. And come back in 2 weeks' time. We've got another one planned, and we've got some pretty amazing treats in store for you for that show too. We're trying things out with these shows. They're a pilot series, if you like, so we're very keen on feedback and any kind of thoughts that you have. We'd be very keen to kind of hear it. Also, you might be interested to know that we're relaunching our Instagram-based project next week, next Friday. So keep an eye out for that. We're looking to showcase more amazing artists through that platform. So tune in and get to know the new Scottish artists. That's what this is all about. So thanks, everyone. And thank you guys who've been behind the scenes. None of this is possible without an amazing team putting it together. Costas, obviously, Dave, and all the team who helped prepare it. Tio, Viva, Emma, Sylvia, Alice, Lindsay, Adam for the graphics, Lauren for the design, and of course, you, the audience. Thank you for getting involved. Really appreciate it. Right, let's bring Harry back onto screen now to play us out.
Hello again.
Okay, Harry, you're going to play us a couple of tunes. Do you want to tell us a little bit about what you're going to play?
Yeah, so what I'm playing for you is, first thing is an excerpt from my single/EP pod, which came out in March last year. Then I'm playing a single of mine called... Thank you very much, too kind. Then I've got a song called Break Species, and then topping off with a song called 3 in 4. 3 in 4. Yeah.
Great. I just found out when I was chatting to Harry just before you came on the show, Harry, that you actually volunteered for Hidden Door as a volunteer in 2018 and were forced to kind of be a bouncer on the gates or something like that. So it's really, really nice to have you come back on the show as a performer, having volunteered and helped make it happen in that way too.
Absolutely,
so we're really looking forward to We'll be looking forward to having you back at the festival in 2021 as a performer. And guys, if you've enjoyed what Harry's done tonight, look forward to the festival and you can come and see him live, and it'll be an amazing experience, I'm sure. Right, okay. We're going to play some credits, but then Harry will play for another 10 minutes or so. So stick around, lose yourself in the sounds, stay well, stay safe, and happy lockdown easing. We'll see you in a fortnight. She's switching camera.
switch the TV off, and now I want to see how it operates, how it can put me into all those weird situations. So it's about time. This is what it looks like. Look at this. This looks like a safety, like a little model of safety. You know, the houses which are here and streets. This is maybe an elevator to go there. But this is different. This is millions and millions of little screens who send light on some sort of electrical light evacuation, because there's so many of them. And in fact, you're watching very, very many frames when you're watching TV. Your head is very busy all the time to calculate and put it all together into one picture. And then, because you're so busy doing that, you don't watch very carefully what the program that you're watching is really about. So you become hypnotized. So all that's on TV, it just goes directly into your brain, and you stop judging what's right or not. You just try to
Thank you. Good night.